Bueno, con ustedes, él es un educador y un artista, compositor, que está dedicado en este momento a la educación y además también ha tocado con muchísimos artistas y ha estudiado jazz, también es director de programas de ensemble en la Universidad de Wyoming y es un percusionista muy interesante porque está muy abierto a la música de sus raíces, pero también está abierto a todo lo que tiene que ver con la música del mundo. Ha estado por acá, me dijo que había estado estudiando con uno de los percusionistas que lo va a acompañar, que es el maestro Camilo Molina, y ha estado bien pendiente de todo, estuvo conmigo hablando un poco de música afrocubana, o sea, este tipo de personas que siempre está abierto al conocimiento, a lo que nos apasiona. Para mí es un honor tener aquí al maestro Andy Wheelock.
Gracias. Mi español no es muy bien, so I will talk slowly in English because I know that as someone who's trying to learn another language, I talk too fast in the language that I know, so I'll try to speak slowly for those of you that might not be great English speakers. And I got to study with your amazing drum professor last week, and as I told him, one of my biggest regrets about my time in Puerto Rico so far is that I didn't manage to become fluent in Spanish before I got here. I was trying, I spent like 3 years, just a slow learner, I guess, so please forgive me for not having that taken care of. First of all, I want to say thank you to all of you. I've gotten to learn a lot about what you do here and your professors and the amazing faculty. Seems like a really awesome place, and I'm very honored to be here. My band is coming in later today, and they'll be doing a piano and bass master class, and then we have the honor of playing for the concert tonight, so we're really looking forward to that. So again, thank you all so much for having us. I was thinking of topics for today's master class, and from everything that I've heard about musicians in Puerto Rico and the conservatory and what it takes to be a musician in the conservatory here, I had a hard time because I'm like, man, what do these monsters need me to tell them about? So I'm going to talk to you kind of about some musical things that I actively think about and work on as a composer and drummer and teacher. Hopefully that helps kind of like change some ways or influence some ways you might think about creating music, whether it's behind the drum set or on your instrument, or if you're writing any of those types of things. So the topic of the master class, I don't remember exactly what it was, but it had something to do with dynamics and phrasing and subdivisions on the drum set, something like that. So kind of keeping in the spirit of that, I'm going to play a little something for you to kind of introduce some ideas that I'm working with. But to summarize them, I try to think of the drum set as a multi-percussion setup. I have a classical music background also, so I studied marimba and timpani and classical snare drum and multi-percussion and all of that. And that really helped kind of influence the way that I approach this instrument. So I try to view this as a collaboration of several different instruments and try to take care of each instrument and use each instrument as a composer while I'm playing. Drum set also has the capacity to be the quietest instrument on the bandstand. We, as drummers, tend to explore the other end, right? Like the loudest end, and we can really fire people up and add energy. But I think one of the underexplored areas for our instrument is the quiet end and how we can influence music that way. And not just in a quiet, subdued, peaceful way, but how we can use the quiet side of this instrument to develop tension also, right? So that's something that I think about a lot, and I'll try to demonstrate some. And then finally, the third part of the topic would be exploring different subdivisions. I spent a lot of years as I think a lot of us do, just kind of playing. And my hands were learning rudiments and learning chops and learning paths around the kit and all of that. And it wasn't until I started to study more West African and East Indian music that I started to explore the idea of a subdivision as a melodic theme, right? Like a rhythmic cell, a subdivision, a certain kind of rhythmic thing that I'm going to explore to try to develop a solo. So I'm going to try to do that for you briefly now, so you kind of hear what it sounds like, and then we can talk about it some more. I was telling a few people I was warming up in the practice room, you'll have to forgive me. I've been here for 6 weeks, and I played drum set with Fidel for about an hour, and then today. So the first few minutes of this solo might be me brushing the dirt off, so be patient. Thank you all. Thank you very much. I'm more accustomed to the type of master class where, like, you guys are like sitting on the stage or something. So, if anyone has questions or comments at any point, just holler them out. Like, I want this to be as interactive as it can be. So, a couple of the things. Let's get into kind of the things that you might be able to think about on this instrument when it comes to creating music. Obviously, first and foremost, I view this instrument as an accompanying instrument primarily, right? This is supporting other music most of the time. So with that in mind, I think it's really important. That helps me shift my focus a little bit. When it comes to soloing on this instrument, I try to kind of think of it the same way. We are accompanying ourselves in a way, right, when we're soloing, right? We still have to manage time, we still have to manage form, we should still be managing some kind of like musical theme, some kind of melody, right? A lot of times when I hear my students play, the solo, for example, goes like, they'll be playing a really nice accompanying role, right? All of a sudden, the drum solo becomes a standalone, kind of separate musical experience that doesn't have anything to do with what's happening. So for me, the idea of shifting the mindset of I'm always accompanying something helps me when I go to approach a solo like I just played for you guys. The idea that I still need to like have a tune. I still need to play the song, right? And in this case, when you're doing a drum solo alone on the stage, you have to come up with the song, right? Could anyone track the song I created rhythmically? Could anyone pick up on the rhythmic style that I was trying to explore? Does anyone know what it was? Is this idea? Does anyone know what that is? Displacement, yeah. 16th notes in groups of 5. 1 unit to 2 unit 3 and the 4 unit, 1 unit 2 unit 3 unit 4 and then 1 unit 2. And just kind of exploring how that theme works. And I think I started with like a 4-bar phrase of it. 1 unit 2 unit. Something like that, right? So the first thing I did was try to create a tune, okay? The other thing that I tried to do, which falls into this accompanying mindset, there's a lot of instruments in front of us as drummers, right? There's a lot of notes in front of you as pianists. There's a lot of buttons in front of you as saxophonists, right? Maybe not as many with trumpet, but the point is, just because you can or you have access to doesn't mean you have to, right? I spent the first 2 minutes of that solo kind of exploring the floor tom, right? And I'm still not, I feel like I went away from it even too soon, right? I let myself kind of lose focus, and I could explore this for days and days, right? There's musical genres that function with this type of the drum only, you know, and it supports all kinds of songs by itself. So I think as drummers, something we can strive to do is use this instrument, this set of instruments, more like an arranger would in a big band, right? When do I play this cymbal? Now, in my mind, that was kind of like a big brass section for that solo. I hit it once or twice, maybe, right? That was like the big, I know, I guess I hit it, there was that middle section, I played it a little bit more. So, anyway, good, bad, if you like, if you don't like, that's okay. That's just what I'm trying to think of, right, as I'm developing the solo. Part of it, I will say, is necessity. I know lots and lots and lots of drummers, probably some of you, that have more chops than I could dream of. Right? So part of what I am as a musician is what I'm trying to understand myself is that if I try to play that way, I end up sounding like a fake. I'm like a phony. People see right through it. That's not the way I really hear music. Okay? So for me, I hear music more in the ways that I'm describing. So as I get older, I'm trying to play within the way I genuinely experience music, with the idea that if I'm true to myself, it will communicate more to the audience anyway. I'll never be Tony Royster Jr., right? Like, that's not going to happen. So why would I try to be like Tony? I should be like myself, right? And I think for all of us, that's something we could strive to do. Okay, that was a sidebar. The next idea, right? We talked about orchestration, right? Is kind of what I started with, and developing a theme. Were the first two things we talked about there. Did I play super loud? Maybe in the middle? Right? There was like one moment I think I was playing some like timbale kind of like rim shot things in the snare drum. That was very brief, right? Did you feel uncomfortable for a minute at the beginning when it was the quiet stuff for a long time? It's okay if yes, I did. Like I for sure did, right? It takes like something we can do on this instrument is also challenge people's ears, right? This for a minute. The first few seconds that everyone in the room should be like, what is happening? And you hear everyone like whispering still and all that. That's cool. Like, that's part of music. That's part of the musical experience. You do that for 3 minutes and this becomes, that's a normal volume after a while, right? And then what happens? I'm just going to kind of fake this for a minute. Now my forte is like something that I would not have been able to access before. Right? And now I have this musical, much wider span, right? Because you've changed people's expectations. That's something that I learned, honestly, from studying classical percussion. I've been playing drum set since I was a little kid, but I studied classical percussion in college. And it was the first time my instructor was like, hey, drums are quiet too. I was like, and it genuinely was like, oh, I had never even thought about that, right? So don't be afraid to expand your musical possibility. Now I want you to think about in a band setting. What does you playing, obviously there's certain restrictions, right? You can't play floor tom with your finger if you're trying to play something like the great combo did before us, 4 or something, right? That doesn't work musically. But there are ways that you can think about applying that in a musical setting in a band when you're with an ensemble. Typically what I tell my students is that the band is only ever going to play as loud as the drummer and only ever as quiet as the drummer allows. Right? The director can be shouting at the band all day long, play quieter, and if the drums are going, that's going to be the floor. That's as quiet as they go, right? So, creating a melody, creating some kind of tune when you're playing. Obviously, if you're in a musical setting, use the tune you're playing, or some variation of it, right? Second, orchestration. Think about this as a collection of instruments that you can use holistically. And the third then is dynamic control, dynamic consideration. Even just as simple as dynamics as a theme actually function, right? I'll play like A, A, B, A, just with dynamics. Those are kind of two separate ideas. You know what I mean? It's the same rhythm, it's the same technique, it's the same instrument, same timbre, all of that. But by changing your dynamic, you create more options for yourself musically and more options for your ensemble. Now, a big part of the dynamic discussion then becomes still being, back to the beginning, still being an accompanying instrument, right? If you aren't responsible with your dynamic choices, you can really undermine what your ensemble's trying to do, right? Like we just said, if a piano solo is ripping and you decide to cut out and go to just hi-hat, your pianist might have a problem after the gig. Say, hey, why did you do that? Like, we're trying to build something, right? Or the opposite. Or the guitar player starts, and clearly the texture, maybe they play a subtle chordal thing to start. Clearly they're trying to get down, and you don't go. You don't let them, right? They might have a problem with you there too. Like, or the trumpet player comes out, and they go, ah, and you go, yeah. It's like, okay, it can be something, it can work, right? I'm not saying, we're talking about like improvised music too, so there are no absolutes. You understand that, right? Like everything, there is no yes or no for sure. Depends. These are just ideas, right? All of this to tell you, like, be responsible with the power you have. With much power comes great responsibility, right? So thinking of these dynamic things musically like a composer, right? I want you to be a composer when you're accompanying people as well, right? But the main area of concern with dynamics is what usually happens when we get louder. Anybody? Do you go faster or do you go slower? Faster. Almost always, right? Louder is faster. So then the inverse, right? If we're trying to play tastefully and offer more space and we get really quiet, we start, like so much of the time, even myself, like the energy will drop out. I actually just listened to a rough take of a record I recorded a couple months ago. And during the piano solo, it was clear we wanted to do just like piano and bass. It was kind of going that way. So I dropped way back and started just kind of playing colors. Dude, my time sucked. It got so thick and lethargic and slow. I'm like, man, we can't even use that tape. Like, we can't even use that tape now. Like, I totally cooked it for him. So it's something that I still really have to think about. The idea that slow should be just as or more intense than the loud stuff, right? So how do you do that? To me, the ways that I have found success is with this idea of subdividing. And I know we all know what subdividing means, right? 1E into 2E into 3E into 4, triple, depending on what you're doing, right? However, if you study kind of like some more Eastern music, I'm thinking specifically of some tabla things that I've gotten to check out. Subdividing for me typically means like really concentrating on 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, like this really, really intense downbeat situation, which can be helpful, but also pretty limiting. Instead, what I've kind of started to explore is the idea of a longer pulses. And it doesn't actually change the way that I count, like the actual 1E into 2E into 3E into 4E into 116th notes, but it's more of the priority which I give notes. So something that I practice all the time is this counting exercise where I say 1E and or whatever syllables you say, and then create a rhythm and accent those rhythms and whisper the other rhythms, okay? So for example, if I'm playing, one, and, 1, and, 1, and, 1, and, 1. You hear all the other notes that are in there? Like I'm still whispering those things. I'm still trying to keep those present. What that counting practice has done is the idea that once anybody starts a tune, right, the tempo is called, that like pulse is going. And it just kind of goes in infinity until the end of the tune. So when I'm taking a solo, especially something like what I just did, I think it's really, really, really important, especially for the quiet stuff, that you are super tapped into that meter as it goes. Not the like the metric meter, but the pulse that's happening. So the whole time I'm playing, or what was it playing? Sorry, found it. So that way, I don't have to have this, and I can create some like musical mystery, if you will, right? This gives you away. At least for most drummers, this gives it away. Everyone's like, oh, I got it. You can kind of track it, right? I like the idea of like rhythmic mystery, so I have to be able to put that away and still keep this intense. For me, by counting that way or hearing pulse that way, I'm able to far better maintain a sense of intensity, right? Now, as I just told you, I'm still not perfect at it because I just threw out a whole take from dragging a couple months ago. So, same thing goes if I'm playing swing, right? Triple, la, 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 triple. That way, especially when I'm playing slow or slow and quiet, maybe not the greatest example because I was just counting triplets. When I'm playing slow swing, I'm thinking closer to 16th notes, right? 1, 2, and then 3, and then 1. You can still play still count triplets that way too. Is what I'm getting at making sense though? The idea of like you have to be connected to that whatever the subdivision is, and you have to be connected there all the time. I play a game with my students that's like, what are you thinking about? And I'll stop a tune like in the middle, be like, and I'll point at the drummer. Like, what are you thinking about? And he'll be lunch or something, right? Something I actively try to do on like in a gig is like, can I stay mentally right here for 3 whole minutes? That seems kind of easy, right? Maybe you're different than I am. That's really hard for me. Like my brain does lots of things all the time that gets me away from this. But the idea of like being rhythmically intense and rhythmically like present right here for a whole tune, that's something I'm still striving to do, right? So again, that's something that will help that dynamic exploration. If we play dynamics and we don't take care of the time, that goes back to the accompanying thing. We're not taking care of our main job. So you can only play your dynamic range as effectively as you can play time within that range. So how many of you practice medium and up in the practice room? Yeah. How many of you practice soft and lower in the practice room by yourself? Yeah, good, okay. As drummers, that's hard for us to do. That's a hard thing to go into a practice room. Even for me right now, it's hard physically, because I just cooled down to get wrists aren't warm. Practicing that way is really important. Otherwise, how on a gig, when it comes to the bass solo, and you gotta keep a fat groove and keep it moving that way, it's gonna fall apart, right? It's gonna either fall in time, or your snare drum's gonna be accidental rim shots, your hi-hat's gonna sound like this. One of the thousands of sounds that thing makes, right? So I really encourage you guys to practice that lower level. I have played on exactly one gig in my entire life where they wanted me to play louder. And however many thousands of other gigs I've played are all gigs they've said play quieter. So I think finally in my mid-30s I'm like, oh, maybe I should practice that way more. That's something I'm striving to do. I hope you guys work on that too. It's a really cool experience in this chair to go to play a drum solo and totally wipe out people's expectations, because instead of playing forte and louder, you do one big, giant, long day crescendo. Right? It's like opposite of what anybody in the crowd will expect. Musically, you can be really interesting that way. You can really expand the way that music is experienced, both on the bandstand and the audience. So, all right, I think we've talked about dynamics well enough. Play quieter, always. so that you can play really loud, and it's awesome. Okay, so let's review. What did we talk about? We talked about melody, playing with a melody all the time. Secondly, orchestration, using every instrument in this kit to its fullest, as best you can. If you come out of the gate and you smack every single instrument in the first 2 bars, what's left? I guess if you're Tony Royster Jr., there's tons left, and it's amazing. But I have to think about music differently. Third, dynamics. Using dynamic control to shape music and to create musical tension and release and interaction, right? And then, kind of within that dynamic category, ensure that your intensity remains high, especially at the quiet stuff, right? That's will get you thousands of gigs. Well, however many gigs there are, you'll get all of those. Okay, that kind of summarizes the general topic that I had prepared for you. Now, there's kind of a tangential version of this that deals more specifically with odd subdivisions of things, right? I developed something at the beginning of this with 16th notes in groups of 5, right? So here's what we're gonna do. I need to gauge where you all are to see how deep we can go. We're gonna clap 16th notes in groups of 5 while tapping your foot on the downbeats. Okay, so it will sound something like this. 1 into 2 into 3 into 4 into 1 into 2 into 3 into 4 into 1 into 2 into 3 into 4. Cool? Let's try that. So stomp your foot on the downbeat and clap your hands or pat your leg or something on 16th notes in groups of 5. Now, I promise you'll be more successful if you count in some way. Alright? 1 into 2 into 3 and the 4 into 1 into 2. Ready? Clap loud and proud. 1, 2, ready, and 1 into 2 into 3 and the 4 into 1 into 2 into 3 into 4 into 1 into 2 into 3 into 4 into 1 into 2 into 2 into 4 into 2 into 3 into 4 into 1 into 2 into 4 into 1 into 2 into 3 into 4. Yeah, cool. Good. Seems like most of us can hang. Raise your hand if that's somewhat challenging for you. Yeah, cool. Before we go deeper, understand also, this is not necessarily about being able to play 16 notes in groups of 5 all the time. If you sit down as a drummer and everything you play is 16 notes in group of 5, all those gigs you had from playing quiet, they take away from you. They take them right back. No more gigs. Okay? I use the analogy, someone taught, I forget who told me this. I think it was Billy Hart when I was really young. He's like telling me all this stuff to practice. And I was kind of like getting bogged down, and he goes, "Now, young man, don't worry. It's not so you can use them all." He said, it's like driving a sports car. You don't drive a sports car so that you can drive 200 miles an hour everywhere you go. You drive a sports car so that you can get on the on-ramp and you can hit 90 in 2 seconds. Right? So it's the idea that learning difficult rhythms that are maybe more intricate than you might need in your selected area, is so that all of the things that you normally have to maintain, you don't even have to think about. Right? They just become like walking. It becomes very easy so that your brain can concentrate on other things. Okay, so with that in mind, don't not practice it because you don't think you can get it. Just the pursuit of practicing rhythmic stuff, again, makes the rest of what you're doing very easy. Makes concert band walk in the park, right? 16th notes, got it. Okay, so now we're going to start that again. And this time, we're just going to clap the downbeat of every measure. So we're going to try to clap the downbeat of every measure while vocally saying the 16th notes in groups of 5. So it'll sound like this. 1, 8, and oh, and sorry, I messed it up. And 1, 8, and oh, 2, and messed it up again. Do you hear what I'm doing? You hear what I'm trying to do? I'm trying to maintain a really strong awareness of 1 while I'm shifting this rhythm through. Let's try it together. That way we can all mess up together. Ready? So clap the downbeat every 4 beats. And say out loud the 16th notes in groups of 5. 1, 2, ready, and 1, and up, 2, in, up, 2, oh, I shifted it again. Ready again. Let's go from the top for me. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, in, and up, 2, in, and up. 3, and 4, 8, and 1, yeah, cool. We made it to 1. I heard you. Nice, good. I did mess up that time. High five for me. Okay. So that's the same exact exercise, but a totally different brain path. You know what I'm saying? Like, it takes different coordination to do it that way than the way we did the first time. Okay? So now we're dealing with being able to passively keep track of a downbeat when we're not playing. How many of you can think of applications for that in a jazz setting? What if the trumpet player's going playing in groups of 5, and you go, yeah, I'm gonna catch that. And you start to play that, what usually happens? Yeah, one is gone for a while. And then at some point, either the bassist or drummer's like, right, and we all like, oh, okay, here we go. So part of this exercise is so that you can, again, you're practicing things that are maybe more advanced than what your horn players are going to do, so that the stuff they play is easy. And you can catch those things and hear those things, maybe join in those things, or you yourself offer that idea up, and still keep track of our main job, which is accompanying, right? Holding it down. Now, the best horn players I've played with, they don't need me to tell them where 1 is. They have all that, they can play all of those figures, and they know exactly where the pulse is, right? So it's less of like a need situation in that setting, and more of a we are working together to create this musical tension. And none of us need to play 1. We know right where it is, and we can still maintain that glue together. Does that make sense? Yeah? Okay. Triplets in groups of 2 and 4 function similarly, though what rhythm do we typically call eighth note triplets in groups of 2? What is the whole rhythm? What does it end up being? Yeah, what is that rhythm? quarter note triplet, right? So that one resets every bar, makes it a little bit more manageable, right? Now, this one and the 16th notes, how many places can you start this one? 3, 1. Or, what happens if I start it in the third partial? I'm just back to the beginning one again, right? Still that first quarter note. There's only 2 versions of quarter note triplets, right? It starts on the downbeat or on the puh, as I call it, which I recently learned is not a normal way to identify it. Do you guys know the drummer Ari Honig? If you don't know Ari, check out Ari. He's like a master of metric modulation and like controlling. You know the movie Inception? Like the dream within a dream within a dream? That's this dude. He goes like pulse within a pulse, and then he goes pulse within that pulse. He can still keep track of the home one. It's mind-blowing. Check out Ari Honig. But Ari told me that puh is not something he used, and I was very confused. I was very proud of myself for knowing an answer. He goes, what part of the beat? And I'm like, the puh! He's like, what? He doesn't call it that at all. So if you want to call it something else, that's fine. I say trip-puh-la, trip-puh-la. That way I have like an articulation at the beginning of every syllable. Anyway, triplets groups of 2, quarter note triplet. You can start a quarter note triplet on the downbeat or on the puh, second partial of the downbeat. Triplets are groups of 4. What's that whole rhythm? Triple-la, 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 triple-la. What's that one? Anybody? Half note triplet. Half note triplet, right? Half note triplet in most every ensemble I've ever heard goes like this. Turns into a 16th note based rhythm, right? So this kind of goes back to what we talked about before with subdivision. To play a half note triplet right, you have to be doing what? Subdividing. Yeah, what are we subdividing? Yeah, the 8th note triplet. Triple-la, 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 triple-la. Then there's no guessing, right? You know exactly where that comes out. Now the half note triplet, you can start 3 different places, right? Right? Any of those 3. 16th notes in groups of 5, you can start 4 different places, right? So all of these things, basically to summarize what I'm kind of talking about, is the idea that exploring different ways to group our common subdivisions is something that we don't typically get to in like the school setting, right? It's not part of our, as someone who spent many years in school and someone who teaches school now, it's not always something we get to. But every like modern jazz drummer that you listen to, the stuff they are playing is based on 16th notes that aren't in groups of 4, right? Or triplets that aren't in groups of 3. And they create all of this rhythmic tension. And if you go to New York now and you go to a jam session, like young people are, I'm sure you all are too, are just crazy hip to these different ways of grouping rhythms together. So this is the way that I'm kind of like perceiving it and studying it myself and teaching it. You have to sing it, right? Notice how everything that I'm doing has some kind of like vocal aspect to it. There's something different. I'm not a neuroscientist. I hit circles, so quite different actually. But there's something that happens when you say, when you use air and you verbalize something. There's something in your brain that's very different than just thinking about it or just playing it. If you can say it, you can play it, right? So something that I work on all the time, an example, is when I first started studying Afro-Cuban music, Afro-Caribbean music, is the idea of like really being able to control a clave. And part of that was like being able to make that fit with a montuno. So that came pretty easy, great, whatever. So then I would do the opposite. that, 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 that. And I'd switch it and try to sing the opposite part. And for some reason, that's stupid hard for my brain. So every time I approach one of these things I'm telling you about, I try to sing every version of it. Okay, if I'm going to clap the downbeats this time, all right, next time I'm going to sing the downbeats. Flipping everything on its head all the time, okay? Again, not so that you can all go on the bandstand and start shredding 16 notes groups 5 and 7 and all of that stuff. It's so that your regular everyday stuff that you're playing and that's getting you gigs and that's making the band feel good, you have total control over. And you can think about dynamics, and you can think about phrasing, and you can think about how you're going to compose a solo, because you're not worried about, is my triplet in the pocket? Is my 16th note in the pocket? It's like, oh dude, I've been studying this stupid hard rhythm. This is easy. I'm playing within 20 or 30% of what I can play. Does that make sense? It's like expanding your ceiling, right? Cool, yeah. So, like I said, kind of that's the topic I had in mind for you guys. We have a couple minutes left. Does anyone have any questions about any of what we talked about or ideas yet?
Me escucho, sí. What's going on? I'm Evan. And so I have a couple questions for you. So the first one is, how did you personally develop your time field beyond just practicing with a metronome?
Good question, thanks man. I grew up in a very rural northern Michigan, like no music, no culture at all. Every bit of music that I've learned, I've had to learn from recordings, basically. So one of my biggest regrets is that I didn't start listening earlier. I really didn't start listening heavy until I was in college, when my professors are like, hey, you should listen to music. And I was like, oh, this is crazy. So to me, that's the primary way that I have learned about feel, is listening to the music I'm studying, listening to the music I'm trying to play. And I would encourage all of you, expand your horizons. Like, the world of rhythm has been around since we started banging rocks together. Every culture on the face of the earth has its own unique way of expressing the same rhythmic ideas, its own feel. Brazilian music in the south feels different than Brazilian music in the north, which feels different than music in Puerto Rico, which feels different than, like, Indian music. I watched this, like, Czechoslovakian drumming group the other day on YouTube. I've been playing music a long time, and I couldn't find one. It's like, there's 15 dancers all in a little jig doing the thing. And I'm like, they clearly know where one is. I'm like, nope. So, like, expand your horizons. Like, the more you listen to and the more different types of things you can listen to, the better. And then also play with your metronome. Metronome doesn't have to be downbeats, right? If my metronome is going beep, 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 make that the third partial of the triplet. Make that a dotted eighth note. 1, 2, right? You become the metronome and use your metronome as a guide instead. Okay.
On your practice session, how is your process in order to develop and explore like a rhythmic melodic motif on the drum set? Like, and how many times did you spend like practicing the same motif? Like, not only the day that you are practicing, but do you practice the same motif during a week, during a month, or how is your process?
I teach full-time, so my practicing in general is what it used to be and much less than I want it to be. So I have to really be efficient with my practicing. So usually my practicing starts like here, recording. I think the battery might be running low. I'll just come up here. First starts with singing usually, like this 16th note in groups of 5 that came to me during I heard a BJ Iyer record. Melody was in 5, so I just started singing that like crazy, and then check. Thank you. start singing, and then, okay, I have 10 minutes between my students. All right, I'm going to sit down and I'm going to count and say it and play it in every different, exactly what I just showed you guys, right? Like, I want to be able to control it in each space, starting on the E, starting on the end, all of that, before I ever get into, like, soloing with it, really. I'm still human, I still like shedding on the drum, so I'll sit down and I'll play some stuff for a while, but that's, like, my process is, I'll hear it, I'll sing it a bunch, get to the kit, I'll start to play the simplest version of it that I can, every iteration of it. And then as I go, then I'll add secondary subdivisions to it. If it's in groups of 5, right, how many ways can I break up 5? Lots. So I'll explore variations of that. And then what I usually do as of the last year or so is I'll try to go to the piano and I'll like create a melody or a bass line that goes with it. And then it ends up being, it's not something like I'm even practicing a ton anymore in terms of like sit down and shed it. I'm just like obsessed with it. And I'm singing it all the time and I'm always tapping it. It becomes less of a practice topic and more of like, oh, the monkey's in my head and now playing in 5, right? So try to put it in everything, you know. And I think for me, creating a melody or creating a bass line that fits really helps. That helps me keep it, you know. Other questions?
Back to the basics, where all begun, but what do you do when you feel like sore?
Like I can't go?
Yeah.
I listen to Dave Matthews Band. Dave Matthews Band is like the first band I listened to that wasn't my dad's music. It was like my music. And it inspired me to play drums. So I usually get away from like study and I just go back for like a week and just play music that like the 6-year-old was like, yeah. You know what I mean? And I just I step away from like the idea of trying to do this and I just go back to really enjoying it. I try to find, because for me, I've never made an advancement like this from anything other than like a joyful experience. You know what I mean? So usually when I've hit a wall, it's because I haven't found any new inspiration. You know? Like I haven't heard anything lately that I'm like, oh, that's it. I'm just kind of tired. So I go back to like the beginning and I just like, bang, bang, and I do that and I have fun and I'm okay with like just loving it. That's enough. And then usually that, for me, has allowed my brain a minute to go like, process all the stuff that I've been trying to learn, give it a little rest, and then someone will send me a record and I'm like, oh, that's it, that's the sound, and I'll study it and I'll, keep going. Yeah, of course.
Now that we're on the topic of kind of drifting away from practice, when you decide to play your own things and kind of have fun with it, when do you decide when it's enough? Like, when do you get to the point where you're like, okay, enough goofing off, let me go back to what I need to do? Like, how do you balance those two?
Yeah, that's a good question. We're probably in a different part of life. I remember being in school and the idea like you have to get time, right? There's nothing that can replace just time. That's it. It's a blessing and a curse. Anybody in the world can be a musician if they put enough time, right? But even the best musicians, if they don't put enough time, they're not going to advance. So the first thing is just make sure you're checking the box of like, I have enough time every day dedicated to this. Then understand the idea, music is music, right? Well, good music is good music. Bad music, there's not much bad music, but there's music that will help you achieve your goals, and then there's music that might not. So to me, a semester is a long time to study, right? And I understand getting burnt out in the practice room. I always practice for the gig, right? Like, what's my next gig? Do I have that music taken care of? If I have 4 hours a day, I typically try to think of like 75% of it is for the gig. Like, make sure I can play the music that's coming up, right? Like, if you're in percussion ensemble or you're playing a marimba solo, something that takes more time, you have to be thinking maybe further ahead. But I think of it as like 75% for the gig, right? And then the other 25%, you have to nurture your soul. So you gotta play music that you love, that makes you happy, otherwise you're gonna quit. You know, or the music that you do prepare won't have any soul, won't have any heart. So why do it anyway? Right? So you make sure you are still taking care of your thing, and something that is only perspective you can only learn from living it. Like, I miss practicing so much. Like, to be an undergrad in a practice room again, and the only thing I had to do was practice. Dude, if I could have that back, it like seemed like work then, but now on the other end of it where I have to like scrape to get time to practice, I'm like, dude, I just want to be in music because I just love playing music. So kind of what I was telling him, like, just keep your love of it. And as the minute you feel your love of music slipping, find it. Because nobody's making enough money to not love this, you know? Like, you gotta enjoy it. Thank you guys very, very much. I'll play later. Come to the concert tonight. My band gets to play. We're going to play some music that I wrote based on all of these silly rhythms that the monkeys are clapping all the time. So come check it out later. We'll play some music for you. We get to, Richard Pena, the guitar professor, is going to play with us. My teacher, Camila Molina, is going to play with us. So it's going to be super fun. See you at tonight's show, yeah? All right.
Bueno, ya se los dijo, no se pierdan, tremendo compositor también, su grupo buenísimo que están por ahí y van a estar en la noche hoy con una música increíble. Y también va a estar por aquí alrededor, así que ustedes saben, se acercan en confianza, es tremenda persona, bien accesible y pueden hacerle todas estas preguntas súper interesantes que con todos esos tópicos que nos dio. Un gran aplauso para Andy Wheelock, maestro Andy Wheelock.